$84 trillion is set to change hands over the next 20 years. Whether you're passing it down or inheriting it, the decisions you make today will shape your family's financial future for generations. Welcome to the Great Wealth Transfer, where David Paulsini, CFP, guides you through the strategies, insights, and pitfalls of navigating one of the largest financial shifts in history. What you don't know could redefine your legacy.
The inheritance they left was meant to be a blessing, but without a plan, it became a burden. Today, we are going to talk about something that most of us will face at some point, and that is leaving a legacy. And most people think that passing down wealth is easy, right? I have a will, that's enough, or I'll just split everything 50-50 between my kids. I get that a lot. Or, my favorite, they'll figure it out. Unfortunately, that is not how it works, or work in the best way, right? Without a plan, wealth disappears. We've talked about that. Families fight. Taxes eat up your hard-earned money. And worst of all, what was meant to be a gift can turn into that burden. Today, I want to share the 6 biggest mistakes we see when people leave behind wealth and how to avoid these mistakes. Mistake number 1, not having a proper estate plan. We've talked about this, but let's talk about Michael and James' parents. Okay, we talked about Michael and James. Now we're going to talk about their parents. They worked hard. They built a solid financial foundation, and they wanted to leave their sons a lasting legacy, right? We're going to call it $3 million in investments and $750,000 in real estate. The problem, they didn't set up a trust. They thought the will was enough, okay? When they passed, their estate went into probate. And that process dragged on for 18 months, cost their family tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees, and created unnecessary stress. So you'll hear this later in the episode for another reason why a trust would make sense for these parents as well, okay? So if they had created a trust instead, there'd be no probate. There'd be no unnecessary fees. A smooth transition of wealth would have happened, and the rules would have been set and most likely very clear, okay? The lesson here, a will alone is not enough. A trust ensures your money is going to the right people, the right way, without unnecessary complications. So an action item for number 1, get a hold of an attorney right now. And we've talked about this. So I'm going to stop there on mistake number 1 because we did an entire episode on this topic before. Let's get into mistake number 2, which is not considering taxes on inherited assets. This is a big deal, folks. Most people don't realize that just because you leave money behind, it doesn't mean your heirs get to keep all of it. So let's go back to Michael and James. Their parents left them a $1 million IRA, and here's how it played out. And again, we talked about this in one of the other episodes, but Michael followed that tax-efficient plan, spreading his withdrawals over 10 years. He stayed in a lower tax bracket and kept more of his money. James cashed it out in one lump sum. That pushed him into the highest tax bracket, and he lost 37% of his inheritance to taxes right away, along with the ability to let that money continue to grow. So a simple conversation with a financial advisor could have saved James over $100,000, and we calculated that number at much higher in the last episode. Separately, and I want to talk about this a little bit, one of the biggest tax mistakes that we see when people try to pass down wealth is cashing out a stock portfolio with a low cost basis to gift the money while they're still alive, okay? Well, the intention is good. Helping heirs now rather than later, the tax consequences can be devastating, right? Here's why. Capital gains can be huge. So if you bought a stock years ago at a low price, we're going to say $10 per share, and now it's worth $100 per share. Selling it triggers capital gains tax on the $90 appreciation per share, okay? Depending on your tax bracket, you could pay 15 to 20% in federal capital gains tax plus state taxes. That is money lost to taxes instead of going to your heirs. Instead, let's talk about that step up in basis again, okay? If you hold on to the stock until death, and I know that sounds morbid, literally, your heirs will inherit it with a stepped up cost basis, meaning their basis resets to the stock's value at the time of your passing. So this allows them to sell the stock with little to no capital gains tax, okay? If they sell it for $100 per share, they pay taxes only on gains above $100, not from the original $10 purchase price. So quick numbers here. You bought some stocks in a portfolio with $100,000, okay? It is now worth $1 million. That is a $900,000 gain, right? You put in 100, it's worth $1 million, $900,000 of growth over a long period of time, most likely. If you took some of this money out to gift to your kids, you are paying taxes on that $900,000. To be extreme, if you took the whole account, you would owe $180,000 in capital gains tax, because that alone would put you into the 20% capital gains bracket for the rate. If you pass away, though, your kids get to keep that hypothetical tax amount, in this case, $180,000. That is a much smarter way to gift the money. Now, I know there are emotions behind this, and many times people want to see their kids enjoy that money, but there is a pretty good chance that there is a smarter way to get the same thing done, okay? The solution to this is to maybe find another place to gift money from, or at least consider gifting this type of account slowly over several tax years, right? So, action item for this mistake: have a financial advisor meet with you, your parents, or whomever might be affected by this. In most cases, when an advisor meets with the whole family to get the complete picture, we could be a very valuable resource, and that meeting is very productive because we know the situation of everybody. If an advisor knows that situation of each benefactor, good advisors can make a plan that works for everybody, okay? Let's get into mistake number 3, failing to prepare the next generation. And here's the hard truth, folks. Many people spend decades building their wealth, but they never teach their kids how to manage it. And it's not just about leaving money. It's about leaving wisdom to protect it. Michael and James grew up in the same household, but they had very different relationships, we'll call it, with money. Michael's parents talked to him about finances. They introduced him to their advisor, and they explained how the inheritance worked. James, no conversations, no education, no guidance. When the money hit his bank account, he thought it was a lottery win and spent it all within a year, okay? If you don't educate your heirs before they inherit, there's a high chance they'll mismanage their wealth. Studies indicate that a significant portion of family wealth is lost within a few generations, okay? I always find this fascinating. According to a 20-year study by the Williams Group, 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation and 90% by the third, okay? They've literally named it as a phenomenon, is often referred to as the shirt sleeves in 3 generations proverb, highlighting the challenges of maintaining wealth across multiple generations. So if you are the generation that built it, you are that first generation self-made person, we call you the builders. You worked hard, you started a business, you made smart financial decisions to accumulate that wealth. The second generation, maybe your kids, the kids witness the hard work and sacrifice, so they try to preserve the wealth, but maybe they don't expand it. That third generation, and this might sound very familiar, we call it the spenders. They often grow up in comfort. They don't understand the effort it took to build that wealth, and then ultimately and unfortunately, they deplete it, right? And I don't know about you, but this scares me. So many of you worked hard and took the long way home to avoid paying a toll. You didn't eat the steak. You didn't buy the purse. You didn't buy the truck. These are all real client examples, by the way, to save money. And now you've saved. You're over that hump. To think that your grandkids are the people that will lose it or use it, it really does bother me. So let's educate these people. Let's educate these folks. And several factors contribute to this rapid dissipation by the time it gets to that third generation, right? Again, lack of financial education. Successive generations may not receive the guidance on managing and preserving wealth, leading to poor financial decisions, okay? Poor succession planning. We do see this a lot. Without that clear estate plan and the governance structures, the rules, wealth can become a source of conflict among the heirs, resulting in legal disputes and a fragmentation of your assets, right? Evolving economic conditions. We have no idea what's going to happen 10, 20, 50, 80 years from now in the markets, but market fluctuations, inflation, unforeseen economic downturns can erode that wealth if not proactively managed, okay? So to counteract all of this, it's essential for families to implement comprehensive wealth preservation strategies, and that's a mouthful, but it is what it is. This includes fostering open communications about financial matters, educating the heirs on responsibility, and establishing the robust estate plan and that do outline clear directives for asset distribution, okay? By taking these proactive steps, families can enhance the likelihood of sustaining their wealth across those generations, okay? Here's an action item. One thing that we have done for clients is send a series of videos or educational materials to them, and then they can pass it on to who needs it, okay? So if you are leaving money and you need educational videos or content to pass on to other folks because maybe they won't listen to you, right? We can do this. Ask your advisor to do this for you, okay? Mistake number 4, treating all heirs equally instead of fairly. This one gets, I'll call it juicy, but most parents default to splitting their estate evenly, but equal is not always fair. Think about this. What if one child took care of you in your old age while the other did not? What if one child has a high-paying career and the other struggles? What if one has a history of bad financial decisions? Leaving James and Michael in this case the same inheritance was a mistake. Michael invested his share and grew his wealth. James, he blew through it. A better solution, and this is out of love for the kids, whether they see it that way or not, you know you'd be doing the right thing by using a certain trust to structure payouts over time. So we would set up inheritance protections for heirs who need them, okay? And be strategic about dividing assets based on each child's needs. Since James was, in this case, the financially irresponsible one, his parents could have set up a trust with structured distributions instead of leaving him a lump sum inheritance. And here's how that could have worked. And we might call this a spendthrift trust, okay? And that would protect James from blowing through his inheritance too quickly while ensuring he still benefits from it over time. Instead of James receiving $1 million outright, the trust would control the timing and the purpose of distributions based on preset conditions that you name, okay? One example, annual income distributions. Instead of giving James access to the full $1 million, he could receive only the investment income. Example, let's say it's that old 4% per year rule. So on $1 million, James gets $40,000 per year so that the principal can remain intact for his lifetime. Or maybe you set up milestones. That would allow James additional payouts only if James meets certain conditions, such as, I'll make these up, at age 35, he receives an extra 10% of the trust if he's employed full-time. Maybe at age 40, he can access another 20% if he has no outstanding debt. Or if James buys a home, the trust matches his down payment instead of giving him an unrestricted amount of cash, right? Or educational health expenses. The trust directly pays for any education, training programs, medical needs, rather than giving James just a lump sum of cash to spend, okay? Who oversees this? That is what the trustee is, okay? So a trustee oversees all distributions. Normally, that's a financial professional or a trusted family member, and they would have the discretion to approve or deny additional payouts if James made responsible financial decisions, okay? This also would offer protection, which we're going to get into in a minute, from divorce or creditors. Since the trust, not James, owns the assets, his ex-spouse or creditors cannot actually claim this money, okay? So how would a trust have helped James? Instead of blowing through the $1 million in a year, James would have likely received a steady income for life. The principal would stay protected and continue growing. James would have incentives to make responsible choices like paying off debt or staying employed. And if he never became financially responsible, the trust would still provide for his basic needs without allowing him to waste it, right? So if you have an heir like James, a spendthrift trust with structured payouts is one of the best ways to protect them from themselves, really. And instead of wealth being lost in one generation, it can last for decades, okay? Fair does not always mean equal. Be intentional about how you distribute the wealth. The action item here, make the difficult choice, face the reality, and then put the rules and documents into place. Giving James, in this case, $1 million does not help him at all. In fact, leaving it to him only hurts him. Reach out to your attorney or your advisor to take the first step in alleviating that, okay? Let's get on to mistake number 5 here. Not protecting assets from divorce, lawsuits, or creditors. Here's something most people don't think about. What if your child gets divorced? What if they get sued? Without protections, your hard-earned money could end up in an ex-spouse's bank account or taken in a lawsuit. So Michael and James both inherited $1.5 million in investments in real estate. Michael's parents had structured his inheritance inside of a trust. When he later got divorced, his ex-wife couldn't touch it. James, however, had no protections. When he divorced, his ex-wife walked away with half. A simple inheritance trust could have kept James money within the family, okay? So a quick one here. The lesson is protect your wealth. We're going to consider trust, keep assets separate from marital property. We might look at LLCs for real estate or business ownerships or prenups and inheritance clauses, okay? Let's get into mistake number 6, not having a contingency plan. I see this all the time. And again, this is something many people don't think about. What happens if, unfortunately, a beneficiary dies before you? What if the person you named as executor or trustee can't serve? Michael and James, in this case, let's say they had a twin sister who was also supposed to inherit. She passed away before their parents, but their estate plan was never updated. The result? The courts had to decide who got her share. A legal battle broke out between James and the extended family. The estate was then tied up in probate for 2 years. Again, costing thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. A simple contingency plan could have prevented the entire mess. The lesson here, life happens, guys. Regularly update your estate plan as circumstances change. Name contingent beneficiaries for all assets. Make sure your plan adapts to life changes. Okay? Let's do a quick recap and we'll wrap this up. The 6 biggest mistakes people make. Not having a proper estate plan. We've talked about that a lot, and we're going to continue to talk about it. Not considering taxes on inherited assets. That alone is going to be a separate episode. Failing to prepare the next generation. We need to get the heirs ready, otherwise they will likely lose the money. Treating all heirs equally instead of fairly. Okay, we need to be strategic about inheritance distribution. Not protecting assets from divorce or lawsuits. We need to put safeguards in place. And not having a contingency plan. Life happens. The estate plan needs to account for the unexpected. Okay? If you want to leave a lasting legacy, here's what we need to do. Work with professionals, estate attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors. We need to think long term. We need to plan ahead for taxes and asset distribution. Prepare the heirs. Update the plan. If you or someone you know wants to protect their legacy, reach out to our team at 6 Point Financial Partners. In our next episode, we're going to talk about investing. How are we actually investing that money to leave a legacy? Make it a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Great Wealth Transfer Podcast. If this podcast resonates with you, reach out to 6 Point Financial Partners at 585-485-6048 or email dpaulsini@6pointfp.com.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. Information here is provided in part by third-party sources. These sources are generally deemed to be reliable. However, neither 6 Point Financial Partners, Private Client Services, nor RFG Advisory guarantee the accuracy of third-party sources. The views expressed here are those of 6 Point Financial Partners. They do not necessarily represent those of Private Client Services, RFG Advisory, their employees, or their clients. This commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by 6 Point Financial Partners or RFG Advisory, or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change at any time without notice. Securities offered by registered representatives through Private Client Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory LLC, RFG Advisory, or RFG. A registered investment advisor. Private Client Services, 6 Point Financial Partners, and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.